Welcome, boils, ghouls, and every fiend in between to another episode of Really Scary, the show where I do deep dives into the true stories behind all of our favorite horror movies. Now, indulge me if you will, I gotta know, do you want to hear something really scary?
Are you okay? Are you okay?
In 2003, a husband and wife filmmaker duo put their money where their mouths were, not to mention their regulator mouthpieces, jumped in the ocean with their cameras and made cinema history with their terrifying horror film about lovers lost at sea. This film went on to become one of the most profitable low-budget horror films in history and put a permanent dent in the Australian scuba diving industry. That's right, we're talking about Open Water. But did you know that this savage shark flick was based on true events? Inspired by real life? So hop on in because the water's warm with blood. But before you come up for air too quickly and give yourself the bends, the references for this video are down in the description. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for brand new episodes of Really Scary, plus hours of original horror content. Now keep an eye on your tour guide and leave the chum at home because things are about to get wet, wild, and absolutely horrifying. This story is centered around a loving couple, Thomas and Eileen Lonergan. The pair was as bright and delightful as any young couple in love. In addition to the hopes and dreams that they had for each other, Tom and Eileen also had the desire to do what they could to help serve the needs of people less fortunate than them. This led to an admirable 2-year stint in the Peace Corps in the Pacific Islands. In January 1998, Thomas and Eileen were traveling home from their stint in the Peace Corps. Both of them, being avid divers, decided they wanted to make a stop in Queensland, Australia, for a chance to dive in the world's largest coral reef system, the Great Barrier Reef. They booked a trip with the company Outer Edge Dive and were on their way to what they thought would be the dive of a lifetime. 26 passengers boarded the boat that day. Jeffrey Nairn, the boat's skipper, led the way as they set out to their destination 25 miles off the coast of Queensland to an area known as Crispin Reef. After arriving, the passengers put on their diving gear and jumped into the coral sea. Apparently, for safety reasons, a head count was done every time a diver went into the water. But a couple who had quit diving early decided to go in for one last dip, and the skipper forgot to change the head count. Therefore, at the end of the session, it seemed like they had the right amount of people on board. Unfortunately, Tom and Eileen were still down below. Little else is actually known about the details of what happened to Tom and Eileen, but one could speculate because of evidence that was found later. Imagine this though. You're scuba diving with the love of your life and a group of people enjoying the Great Barrier Reef. After about 40 minutes, you come back up to the surface, scan your surroundings, and it is nothing but water. Miles of ocean in every direction. The diving boat, along with the skipper and the other scuba divers, has gone home without you. Oh, and I forgot to mention, you're stranded in shark-infested waters. I don't know about you, that just harkens back to the oldest fear that human beings could have, is these monstrous predators. Apparently, leaving divers behind isn't actually as uncommon as one would hope. But it also isn't necessarily a death sentence. In this case, however, the time it took someone to recognize that Tom and Eileen weren't on the returning boat was too long. Tom and Eileen weren't discovered to be missing for 2 whole days after the dive, when a bag containing their belongings was found on the boat. Alarm bells rang, and a massive search began. Both air and sea rescue teams spent 3 days looking for the missing couple. Everyone from the Navy to civilian vessels took part in the search. Eerily, the day after the incident, another dive group was taken to the same area and found dive weights on the sea floor. A crew member simply described the discovery as a bonus find, and they moved on. Several days later, rescue members found some of the Lonergan's diving gear washed ashore, including a diving slate. Now, I didn't know this, and in case you don't know, a dive slate is an accessory used for making notes underwater. This is so tragic. The slate they found read, "To anyone who can help us, we have been abandoned on Agincourt Reef, 25 Jan 1998. 03 p.m. Please help us. Come to rescue us before we die. Help." but Tom and Eileen's bodies were never found. In the absence of the Lonergan's bodies, rumors began to swirl among the families and the diving communities. Was it all a matter of negligence on the part of the company or the captain, or was there something more sinister lurking beneath the surface of the seemingly do-gooder couple? It was briefly thought that the Lonergans may have staged their disappearance to start new lives for themselves. But as the couple's bank accounts and insurance policies went unclaimed, that theory quickly died. This created room for another theory. Tom had committed murder-suicide, or the couple decided to kill themselves together. But other than a few vague entries in Tom and Eileen's personal journals about marital discord, there was little else to support those possibilities either. In February 1998, a woman's wetsuit matching Eileen Lonergan's size washed ashore in North Queensland. Upon examination of barnacle growth on the wetsuit, it was determined that the wetsuit was likely submerged back in January. It also had tears along the buttocks and armpit areas, presumed by the examiners to have resulted from contact with coral. Or was it something else? In June of '98, 6 months after the disappearance, more of the couple's diving gear was found washed up at Port Douglas Beach, 75 miles from where Thomas and Eileen were initially lost. Among these items were inflatable dive jackets marked with the Lonergans' names, along with their compressed air tanks and one of Eileen's fins. It was suspected that the couple ultimately became dehydrated and disoriented, and either drowned or they were attacked by sharks. During the inquest, experts speculated that given the state of the gear that was recovered, the couple had likely not experienced an animal attack, but rather succumbed to delirium, which caused them to remove their diving outfits voluntarily. Without the buoyancy provided by their gear, experts testified that Tom and Eileen wouldn't have been able to tread water for very long and would have soon drowned. The coroner dismissed suggestions that the Lonergans had died by suicide or staged their disappearance. And later, in a court case, the skipper, Jeffrey Nairn, was charged with unlawful killing. The judge said that the skipper should be vigilant for the safety of passengers and ensure safety measures are carried out. He added, "When you combine the number of mistakes and the severity of those mistakes, I'm satisfied a reasonable jury would find Mr. Nairn guilty of manslaughter on criminal charges." Spring is in the air, but depending on where you live, you either feel like you're in the middle of an ice age or you're stuck in the film Mad Max. I know for me, in California, it is currently 9:20 at night and 85 degrees in my apartment. Either way, you want to look good. So stop on by the Box Bros Horror Merch Store. Maybe you're a fan of our film Downstairs. What the fuck was that? Guess what? We got you covered. Are you more of a fan of giant men in diapers?
What, you're not gonna feed me because I don't like it? I'm a baby. Peas are good for me.
You might love the merch from our film Rupert. Could it be you're more into the verticals? Well, we've got plenty of vertical horror shorts. And damn right, we got you covered in the merch as well. With Box Bros Horror Merch, we literally got you covered year-round so you can survive the horrors of real life in style. Now back to this super depressing video. Nairn was later found not guilty, but his company Outer Edge Dive was fined after pleading guilty to negligence, and it folded. Queensland's government also introduced stiffer regulations, including the requirement that captains and dive masters independently confirm passenger head counts. Later, writer-director Chris Kentis and his wife Laura Lau, who were both avid divers and haunted by the story of Tom and Eileen, had an idea. What if they took that story and then used their life savings to buy a couple consumer handycams and put some actors into actual shark-infested waters? Maybe they could make a thrilling feature out of that. And that is exactly what they did. One of the caveats that Kentis had for the movie is that the sharks had to be 100% real. They knew that with their budget of $130,000, there was no way they could afford CG sharks, and they definitely couldn't afford practical effects sharks. Apparently, the real deal's just cheaper. It was even in the actors' contracts that they had to be willing to get into the water and perform with the sharks. Apparently, Blanchard Ryan, who stars in the film, agreed agreed to all of that in the audition thinking there was no way she was gonna get the part. Well, she did, and before she knew it, she was swimming with sharks. At first, because the entire feature is filmed on handy cams, it was rejected everywhere. And Chris and Laura were heartbroken. After all, they had invested everything into this movie. That was until a judge at a little-known festival called the Sundance Film Festival saw a VHS screener of the film and loved it. Apparently, he said that the VHS was 10 minutes in, so it seemed like the person who had the VHS before saw the quality of the footage and just gave up after 10 minutes. Unfortunately, 10 minutes in, it starts getting really good. That judge loved it, and so did the rest of the festival, apparently. It was acquired by Lionsgate Entertainment, and this little shark film with a $130,000 budget went on to make $54 million worldwide. It also has 2 sequels, though the original filmmakers didn't return for those ones. After a rewatch of this film, I have to say that the handycam aspect only makes it better with time, in my opinion. This movie really does feel like a tourist's home video from hell, and I absolutely recommend it. I've heard some people say that it's boring and it isn't very scary, but I honestly think those people don't have much empathy. I mean, how could you not feel bad for these scuba divers, right? Yeah, sure, there's parts where not a lot is happening, but that is part of the nightmare in itself. Also, the fact that they are clearly dealing with real sharks makes everything 10 times more fucking terrifying. If this one drifted past you unnoticed, I definitely recommend checking it out. See what I did there? Oh yeah. Believe it or not, I take time to write these. If you're still watching, thank you so much for helping keep me afloat. I'd feel lost at sea without you. Leave the comment scuba snack so I know you haven't been eaten by sharks quite yet. Also, check out my last really scary video if you haven't already, where I do a deep dive on the horrific haunted house flick, The Amityville Horror. Seriously, check it out. It's a wild story. Make sure to share this video because scaring is caring, and let me know in the comments what your favorite horror movie based on true events is. Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna hightail it out of here before I get left behind. See you in the next video, everybody. Lots of love.